commitment to marriage is it's a quite hairy goal, and we think it's a demanding goal. Most people seem to hope that everything that has to do with love and relationship should fall naturally and happen spontaneously, and if not, it's somehow not genuine. But too many people seem to think that a good relationship is something that just happens, and if it doesn't happen, it's because they were not made for each other. In our experience, we need to learn some skills and be aware of some of the choices we make. That will help us. That helps a lot. Awareness is a key word in marriage. In everyday life, some skills and making good choices will ensure that your relationship will continue to develop positively. And we will encourage you to join webinars like this, read books, and discuss the things happening in your relationship with each other. Yeah. Too many people seem to Okay. Our experience is that to learn some skills and be aware of the choices we make helps a lot. Both within us and around us, there are many forces in life that will pull us apart from each other. And because of that, we need to establish a glue, something that can keep us together. And we need a glue that is stronger than the forces around us. And in us that try to tear us apart. One ingredient in that glue is to understand that all relationships go through different phases.
And we are going to share a little bit about those phases. One reason that we might be torn apart is that the first love passes away. We fall in love and we fall out of love again. And in the beginning of a relationship, most couples are really in love with each other, and it seems like we just float around on cotton candy and everything is easy and perfect. He is fantastic, and so is she. But what actually happens is that your brain is lying. Our brains are lying to us when we are really in love, because she is not an angel and neither is he. She's a normal person and he's a normal person. None of us are as fantastic as our brain tells us in the first phase of our relationship. And the thing that I've started on now is actually a circle that, there you have the picture. And now we are in the first piece of cake, falling in love. But after some months, or maybe after some time, maybe months, up to 2 years, and not more than 2 years, things change. And suddenly we find ourselves in a different and considerably more demanding phase in our relationship. And if you maybe are in that difficult situation now, we will say, don't be afraid. There is nothing wrong with you. This is normal and you can handle it. You just need some tools. And just to stick to what Paul said in the beginning, because we believe in God, praying for ourselves and for our partner is a very important tool, but we also want to add something that's very practical and different from that. The next phase, as you see on the picture, the phase after falling in love is what we call the power struggle or the conflict phase. And in fact, your brain continues to lie to you during that phase. But this time, the lies are not that positive. Things have changed. Maybe you really loved your wife's clarity and firmness when you were in love, and suddenly now the same thing, the same action, the same person is not that nice any longer in your eyes, but no, the firmness has turned into irritating stubbornness. That might happen. And what you loved as your husband's generosity towards other people, maybe it's changed for you, and now it changes to you being worried about him not taking enough responsibility for the needs of your own family. So things change. Things like that can lead us into severe conflicts, and the power struggle really has forces that can pull us apart. But it does not at all have to be the end. Resignation and breaking should not be seen as an alternative, even though things are tough. And all couples we know are going through that phase. So just let me say it this way. What you think about your partner might not be the whole truth about him or her. Because if you are in one of these two phases, the fact is that you until now have told yourself your story about your spouse. First, the very nice and about the fantastic person, and then the not so nice about the more difficult person. But it's all in your mind. And now it's time for a new commitment. Dag is going to talk about that. And the time for letting your spouse, letting him or her tell you their own story, sharing thoughts and worries, hurts and joy.
I will just add something to the first phases here, because we have some psychological history that kind of plays into this phase of falling in love and the power struggle. Just let me share short about our history psychologically. When we grow up, we are surrounded by different people that care for us or should care for us, and try their best, or maybe they didn't try at all. But as children, as infants and children, we have needs, and we are what shall I say, totally dependent on the grown-ups around us. Like you now, as grown-ups, maybe are responsible for children. And because we're not perfect, none of us, even though we strive and we want to work on our integrity and work on our skills as parents and grown-ups, we have a history of wounds and needs that haven't been met from our childhood, and that deeply affects how we see the world. It affects how what kind of expectations we have from other people, and what we are looking for when we are looking for our spouse or somebody to be part of our life, also in friendship. And our wounds and needs make this picture of the world, what to expect and what we expect of other people. And when we fall in love, we feel attracted to people. We feel attracted to a person that have, on mysterious ways, we feel attracted to people that have wounds and needs from their childhood in the same areas that ourselves. Shortly said, yeah, it has been written books about this, so we can't go deep into this now. But the fact is that there's some similarities between you. And in Norway, we have a saying that people that are the same kind of have the best play together. We kind of say that it's a saying that people are alike, maybe have the best play together. And in marriage, when we fall in love, that's true. We do attract to people that have the same kind of perspective of the world and the same expectations. And out of these wounds and out of these unmet needs from our childhood, when we fall in love, we say something like, it's like you've always been there. It's like I can't imagine how life was without you before I met you. It's like you know me better than I know myself. And like Tonje said, you finish my sentences, or you know what I'm thinking about without even telling you. And we feel this is perfect. And then we enters the power struggle. We fall out of love, and what was charming and intriguing now is more of a frustration, and we say things like, you interrupt me all the time, and you think you know what I'm thinking about, but you don't, and we kind of try to get out of this power struggle and into this next phase, like Tonje talked about, the new commitment. And we need to get into that new commitment. I'll just add one more thing from our psychological history, because we have what we call in this context, we call it our lost self. We have dreams, we have feelings, and we have maybe characteristics that we weren't able to or weren't allowed to talk about when we was a child. So when you grew up, you want to be an artist, or you wanted to take an education that was something else than your parents, and you was kind of told that in our family we don't do that. In our family we don't take that education, or we don't take education at all, or I don't know how it's in your family, but in my family, we didn't talk about feelings. We weren't allowed to talk about feelings. So that's something I lost in my growing up. But in Tonje's family, they really talked about feelings. They talked a lot about feelings, maybe too much about feelings. But that was very intriguing to me. That was kind of something that sparked the love I felt for Tonje in the start. And so when we fall in love, we tend to fall in love with people that are strong and outgoing and excellent in what we have lost, what we're not strong in. So it's like opposite attracts. So it's true that opposite attracts. So it's both similarities attracts when it comes to wounds and needs and perspective of life and expectations, but then opposite attracts when it comes to how outgoing or inward we are, or if you are maximizers or minimizers. Maybe you want to be on a platform and entertain people, but you don't dare to. You will fall in love with somebody that dare to entertain and dare to take the platform and want to show themselves to the world, maybe. So this really drives this process and the phases we're in. So when we fall in love, this is something that attracts us. In the power struggle, this is something that threatens us, and we need to get to a new commitment. And a lot of people comes to this commitment and says, I can't stand it anymore. I don't want to live with you. And they break out, and they lose the whole point of marriage. They lose the biblical point of marriage to be something that grow together with consciousness. And the new commitment, I think it's really important that we get to this phase. Here is where we decide to work on necessary changes in our relationship. We commit to create a better future. And we get into the fourth phase that we that we call the becoming of consciousness. You become conscious, you get to know your spouse, like Tonje talked about, this subconscious drive that we tell our own story about our spouse. When we become conscious, we ask open questions so we can get to know our spouse and their story about themselves. It means that we use our will to do our part so that we both get more satisfied in our marriage. It starts about acknowledging that we both need to listen more to what our spouse share about his or her life. We want to ask these questions. So far in the marriage, in the first 2 phases, we have just listening to our own stories about the other one. You're perfect, we say. But if they told their own story, they wouldn't say, I'm perfect. Nobody says, I'm perfect, because we know we fall short and we know well about our shortcomings. If we do this work, if we become conscious, if we ask these questions, if we're willing to listen to the other person's perspectives and history, and get to know their psychological history, get to know their upbringing, and get to know what they bring into the relationship. If we do this, we will enter a new kind of reality, and we call it the revelation. It's an epiphany. We find that this is what it's really all about. It's worth investing in this relationship, and my partner has something that she's the one that's worth fighting for. And we enter what we call the mature relationship, the conscious marriage, where we grow together. And luckily, this is not a closed circle. It's not that we go through these 6 phases and then it's over. No, it's a spiral. And if we work on this consciousness, if we work on this telling stories and listening into each other, and accepting that things look different from your perspective than from my perspective, and accept that I need to visit your world. I need to see the world from your perspective. And when I accept that, Tonje sees things her way, and I want to be part of that, and I want to explore that, then we will make this into an upgoing spiral. We fall into love again. Because the things that draw my attention the first time is still there in Tonje. The things that we have in common, the things that she's good at that I'm not so good at, the things that I see in her that complement me, the things that she sees in me that complement her, all those things are there. So we have this upgoing spiral. Maybe the love isn't that intense as the first time, but it's still really exciting. And we fall out of love again and into the power struggle. But it's not so intense that either, because now we know what it's all about. And we know that after some months we fall out of love and into the power struggle, and our subconscious kind of tells us again that this won't work, and she's not the right for you. But then I commit myself. I go into the conscious work of asking questions and listening into her stories, and being able to and curious to what's going on in her life. And then it revelate for me again, wow, this is what it's all about, growing together. And this conscious marriage it's so more deeply rooted in our inner being. And it's so this is where we grow as people, and we realize that, wow, she loves me even though I'm not perfect. She loves me even though I'm not able to make it all the time, even though I do my best. So it's about making the necessary investments that these relationships need to be strengthened. And if you know that you have not actually made that important choice, it's not too late. It's all about those 2 words, I will. If you want to build a long-term investment in your relationship, you're able to, you just need to use your power of choice. Statistics shows us that one of the most important things for married couples to be satisfied in the relationship is that they know for sure that their partner is dedicated and has decided that he or she will stay faithfully with you. So if you haven't told your spouse that, maybe not since you answered yes on your wedding day, we will encourage you to look to your wife and to your husband, look into the eyes of your woman or your man and say, I want to invest in this. I want you to be sure that I will do my very best, that you will be satisfied. And I think that's, if you're going to talk about what the Bible say, I think that's the calling for all of us to be the other one's servant. As Jesus loved us, we should love our spouses. The next ingredient in this glue that helps us stick together, the first one was to know that these phases are natural and we can enter them one by one. Some we entered unconscious, like the 2 first, but the 4 next phases we enter with our willpower. The second glue is practical. It's very simple, but it could be very challenging. It's about time together, planned time together. And we will say, plan at least 2 hours a week for just the 2 of you to be together, like we have done this evening. It has been an important investment in our relationship.
It's so quick to postpone time together with your spouses. Isn't that strange? But we often do that. And I think that's because we hope for so-called better times all the time. When we are less busy at work, when the ongoing projects are finished, when we have taken our exams, when there are calmer times, or when the kids, if you have kids, if they get a little bit older, then we will have time together. Then everything will be easier. And some call this the big illusion, because there is one fact that we really need to know and take in, and that is we always fill up the time we have. And making time for people or for the people who means most to you, the most important people in your life, that's not something that just happens. Dag said earlier about that a good marriage should just happen. And I think we often think that about time together, it should just happen. Our experience is that it has to be a conscious decision that we really want to have time together. And John Gottman, who more than anyone has been researching marriages, he says that if you're going to have a marriage where both are happy and find the relationship fulfilling, building a strong friendship is urgent. Knowing that your partner intends to be faithful, as Dag said something about, that's a part of this friendship, because good friendships are faithful. And friendship is staying in contact with each other. We need to be in contact with each other, and to have contact, we actually need time. And friendship is all about constantly getting to know each other better. And it's about being focused on the needs of the other person, not my own needs all the time. And Gottman says that a good relationship is about turning towards each other in kindness. And that's a physical thing, turning towards each other in kindness. Putting down your phones and everything else that will distract you. And some people seem to think that friendship was something that we built before we got in love or started when we were dating, maybe we built a friendship, and then we got married, and then the roles changed. But friendship is something that we build all the time for the rest of our life, and it's so important. It's like a house that we maintain, rebuild a bit, paint in new colors. Yeah. Our challenge is to create arenas and build frameworks that helps us to live in that friendship all the time. Plan time together every week is that framework. You may call it a date without kids. May we suggest that if you are two couples living in the same area and you have kids, maybe the same age, maybe not, but these kids like each other and they go well together, maybe you can help each other so that both couples get 2 hours, at least 2 hours a week by themselves. And don't make it so difficult. It's about going for a walk. It's about having a meal without kids who needs you through the meal. It's about talking together without being disturbed. It's about turning towards each other in kindness and be able to be there, stay that. And what should we talk about? Haven't we discussed all the themes? I mean, we've been married for 26 years. Is there anything that we haven't talked about? Maybe not. But there is one thing that is very important, and that is that we change. We change all the time. And I thought of it the other day because now it's spring in Norway. We have had a long and cold winter. And actually, I am a different person in the beginning of May than I was in January. I have changed. And Dag knew me in January, and he needs to know me now. And we need to talk about things because things changes. And that's not all that changes. My worries changes. His worries changes. Our joy, the things that we focus on, the things that we are thinking about, it changes. And yeah, you can add.
And not only are we changing, but I think one of the tasks that we kind of take on when we get married, we take on the task to be our spouse's most important team member. And I think it's important to say that it's not about me, it's about Tonje. And for Tonje, it's not about Tonje, it's about Dag. And kind of make ourselves, make for yourself the most important task in life to help your spouse fulfill their calling and their life and their goals in life. And when we do that, when both of us do that, we become the most important team member in the other person's team. And that's an ongoing process. Tonje has different goals now than not only in January, but what she had 10 years ago. She strived for different things, and now she strives for other things because we enter new phases of life together. And we kind of want to support each other's ongoing life. And also because we think God is part of our life and has a calling over our life, and we want to be in ministry together with Him. That changes, and we're in it together. Even though we have different jobs and different occupations, we still in this together, and that togetherness is not something that we just choose to. We choose to, but we also have to work on that togetherness.
So what do we talk about? We talk about life now. What is going on in your life now? In May 2021. Share your joys, share your worries. Listening to each other is important. Asking how can I support you? How can I support you? We call it to visit each other's lives. And that's, for us, that's very important. I think that's enough for now. Or did you?
Yeah, I would just add one thing. The last thing Tonje said was, ask how you can support each other. And I will especially address you guys in here. For us men, I think it's really important that we see our life as to be supporters of our wives. I think it's so important because we live in a manly world, not only here in Norway, and it's easy to think that Norway is one of the most equal countries in the world when it comes to gender. And maybe it is, but still here in Norway, it's a man's world. And I think it's so important that we as Christian men, as Christians, that we men take on the task of support our wives in their life and be their most important supporters. So guys, step up, be like Jesus and support your wives.
He didn't have a wife, but that's okay. We think that's maybe enough for now. Thank you for listening, and now for the questions. If